welcome to episode 254, that's right, of Checkpoint Chat. My name is Alessandro Barbosa. I'm joined by Matty Figueroa. There's a weird inflection on the voice there. I apologize.
I want somebody to go through every episode we've ever done, the last 100 episodes, okay, and just do a montage of my eyes. Every time, it's the quick check. You start talking, I'm like, Audacity, OBS, volume levels, we're good.
It's like when you were being taught to drive and you got to a stop street and it's like the 5-point check and you're like, this is actually stupid.
OBS, got that tab open, got this open, cool, see the sound bars, see it recording, cool.
Check OBS again just in case it's moved.
And by that time, you're done with the intro and you're like, then you introduce me, I'm like, oh, hello. And I'm like, I've got nothing else to add to this other than what's happening right now.
I'm very glad I do not have to produce. It sounds terrifying and a lot of responsibility, and I'm not about that life.
Touch wood, clean slate still.
The only episode we've ever lost is our tester episode.
100%. Yo, 254.
And since then,
we are.
It's just been up. There's been... I think there was one or two times where we were worried something had gone wrong, or like
we've salvaged. It's like your audio is out of sync, or we drop off the call, and it's like, cool, we can fix this, and we do. And it's funny,
or like those moments where you've forgotten to save beforehand, and then you save, and you're just looking at that bar.
See,
and
I did save beforehand. We've had those, when we've had to stitch episodes together, it's like you'd never know, because it's like, in news. Today,
when we dropped off a call like midway,
untrained eye or ear would never know.
There's also been those ones I think we've been like 10 minutes in and you've been like, I actually don't know if we started correctly. Can we just do it again? It's like, yes, let's just redo the banter again for 10 minutes.
Just pretend it never happened. Lots of fake laughs. Good joke. Never heard that one before.
You'd never know. It's the magic of editing and the power of laziness that gets you this show every few weeks. I was going to say every week, but that hasn't been true for a while.
Yeah,
so,
I was telling you before we started recording that I couldn't remember if the last time we spoke you had been overseas, had you come back? It's like, because time's just flying by, man. I don't know.
It really is. It's like August already.
This is your August episode.
I've almost been back for like a month and a half, which is nuts to me.
Oh my gosh.
No, it's crazy. It's great. And I think it's been 3 weeks since the last episode. But the release schedule has been kind of like stagnant.
There's been nothing. Actually, I mean, not that there's been nothing, but there hasn't been anything like, wow.
Yeah.
And that changes.
There's stuff coming out though. Can I tell you, potential game of the year came out yesterday.
What?
World of Goo 2. Oh. No one's talking about it. I can't believe it.
You were going to say, what's that game Darren's playing at the moment?
What, the cartoon one?
Yeah, what's it called?
Oh, Thank Goodness You're Here. There's been some buzz for that game.
I was like, damn, where did that game even come from?
There's so much positive buzz for that game, and it's like 2-3 hours long, which sounds perfect for me right now. And apparently it's super funny.
It's on
super
Switch?
British, so that should be for you.
Oh my gosh, I live here now. I can be like, yes, this is all true. or this is fake. This does not happen.
There's lots of sexual innuendo, double entendres. It's
nice.
It's apparently good. It's apparently very, very good. So that and World of Goo 2, you cooking in August. You've got 12 hours total of game time there.
You don't need Star Wars Outlaws or anything.
No, fuck that. No ways. Why would you want to shoot stormtroopers and speed bike around the world when you can create dubious structures with goo?
I mean,
you think I'm being facetious, but
no,
honestly,
100% believe you.
It's a real question right here. Did you ever play World of Goo back in the day?
I played a bit of the first one, and it's one of those things where I enjoyed it, but I never played it extensively. I don't know why.
I need to check. I think it's a 14-year-old game now. I remember playing World of Goo in high school.
World of Goo is the one
might as well
where
be a different fucking lifetime.
You basically have to build a bridge from one side to the other. You need to.
Well, that was like the initial sort of goal. So a lot of the initial puzzles were like, you've got to construct. You got to put your goos together to get from one end to the other. And sometimes it was like, cool, you've got to build like a horizontal bridge, so you've got to prop up certain points with like balloons or something like that.
Okay.
But then it gets like, then you get different types of goos. So you got like the green ones that you can reposition, so you can like build a structure and then like take out one and see if your structure like completely dies. Then you've got these like white ones which have to have goo near them to be activated first, which is sort of like me in the morning.
That's great. Activate with coffee.
Yeah, exactly, with tea or coffee. I don't actually remember the other one. Again, this came out in 2008, so it is a 16-year-old game. But if you've been curious about it, they put it out on mobile, quite a while ago, but it's part of the Netflix library now.
That actually
and on mobile, especially on iPad,
mobile.
pretty good. Pretty good. But yeah, World of Goo 2 came out yesterday. Still the strangest like sequel ever, I think, to just appear on a Nintendo Direct.
Is it the same developers, do you know?
Yep, same developers.
What have they been doing for the last 16 years?
They've been doing other games, actually. A lot of...
Riding that World of Goo success for 16 years. Ran out of money, like, shit, put the sequel out. we need money again.
They made a bunch of like games sort of like that look like World of Goo since then. So let's see if I can...
The
Wikipedia article for their studio just goes to the World of Goo. So they did Little Inferno, Human Resource Machine, 7 Billion Humans, which I've never heard of. Yeah, that's basically it. And then World of Goo. So their last game was 2018. So it's been a while.
It's still a long time though.
Yeah, all of their games have that similar sort of style, that like 2D sort of... Yeah, listen, I'm excited. I love World of Goo, so I think it's a cool little game, and I'm excited to play more. Thank goodness You're Here also looks really good. I think both of those on like a Steam Deck would be pretty good, I think. Although World of Goo is more of a... I think a mouse game. You need a bit more precision in there. I think on the Switch that would be slightly trickier. I won't lie.
The Steam Deck doesn't have a touchscreen now.
It does.
Yeah, it does it as well. Okay.
Yeah. Has a touchscreen.
Speaking
and it has those little like capacitive pads on the side which act as a mouse.
How are you feeling about Star Wars Outlaws? Let me tell you, I am very lukewarm in this game. I've watched footage and I've gone And it's funny because I was looking at the website or whatever yesterday, and it I mean, it's one of the big things in the box is like it's the first open world Star Wars game. I'm like, yeah.
Didn't Jedi Survivor do that?
That's what I thought. It's like, are they?
I mean, they say open world, but it's also like multiple planets that are little hubs. So how's that different to Jedi Survivor?
So I was also like, I swear Jedi Survivor was pretty much that. It's like these big hubs, right? So
like
I
you
don't
could
know.
probably argue against like Fallen Order because those were very bespoke hubs, but like Jedi Survivor has that main hub which is an open world. For
So I was very confused. It's like, okay, like that's the one
also,
big thing in the box.
Are they just like fucking forgetting like Knights of the Old Republic and like the old Star Wars game? Like there's a fucking MMO. Like you're gonna tell me that the MMO is not open world? I don't make
the rules here. Let me pull open the site of Star Wars.
That's a nuts statement. Actually, like thinking about it, that's just so. That doesn't make sense.
Star Wars Outlaws. Hang on, we're gonna get to the bottom of this. Okay, you can see my desktop. I think
I'm with you. I'm just corralling a cat here.
Look at this. Where did I see it? I saw. Yeah. Right. Where are they? Explore and open world. Where did it say that? It was like the first open world. I was like, hold on.
Are you lying now?
No, now I'm on the spot. I'll find it. I swear I read it yesterday. I was like, really? Yeah. Experience the first ever open world Star Wars game. Oh, hang on. Maybe they're being clever. The first open world Star Wars game set between the events of The Empire Strikes Back.
Oh
and
my
Return of the Jedi.
god.
That is...
That's such a specific thing.
No.
Like, experience the first open world Star Wars game set before the movies. It's like, okay, well.
Okay,
yes.
I think I read that and I was like, what? And I just didn't read the rest.
I mean, I don't blame you. That's a ridiculous qualifier for that sort of statement.
Good
so
God. Okay, I take it back.
I'm sort of with you though. Like, I know seeing it earlier this year at like Summer Game Fest, and these sorts of like trailers made it look very, very good. And then there was that very odd period straight after Summer Game Fest where a lot of publications had the chance to try it. And it's very rare that you see previews so openly negative about a game, because you know, both of us have previewed games. You kind of have this idea going in of like, this is an unfinished product, you're playing a vertical slice. It's very difficult to get a encompassing read on a game when you have such limited time with it. So for the most part, previews tend to skew positive just because like they're showing the game off in the best light and you have very little time to really critique it. So to see so much negativity around its preview was interesting. I mean, Eurogamer called it ancient feeling, which is that is such a bold statement to make
set in this
a Star Wars universe. But there were more previews, I think, last week or the week before. They were like from a 4-hour slice of the game. They were way more positive.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they kind of like reiterated the things that I read that like kind of made me a bit lukewarm. Was like, the AI seems brain dead.
Nice.
The stealth seems way too rudimentary. The shooting has very little feel behind it. It seems like a lot of the positive parts of the game come from its atmosphere and its like characters, and the act of actually playing it is less so, which I don't know.
No.
I'm with you. I'm like, it's weird that a Star Wars game is out in like 3 weeks and I'm not like, oh my God, I'm ready for this, you know?
Now for my next question.
I keep forgetting it's coming.
How many cameos are they going to slot into this this game? Are we going to see Darth Vader? Probably.
100%.
Are we going to see Luke? Probably. I would bet that we're going to tick so many of these boxes. Like we have to put this. I mean, in one of the trailers, you obviously there's Jabba the Hutt. You see Jabba. Old Han in his carbonite thing. There's Lando.
Oh, that's right.
You see, like those two have been in the trailers already, and I'm like, okay, who else are they going to...
You see the most cameoed character in Star Wars history, Tatooine.
Oh my God. Do you know, it just shows, it's interesting, this game, because it's one of those things where I knew it's coming. I haven't really paid attention to it until this week, because I was like, oh my God, it's out in like a month or in 3 or 4 weeks. Do some reading on it. It's like, you can visit all these Star Wars planets, Tatooine. I'm like, what is it with these Star Wars people?
They just fucking love sand.
The fucking desert planet in every piece of media with Star Wars.
It's also the desert planet that was first described as this outworld planet that no one gives a shit about. And yet...
it turns out everyone gives a shit about it.
Yeah, everyone has been there. Like, every
God.
Jedi on Earth, every main character on Earth, like in the Star Wars universe, has been there. And then they couldn't even... like, listen, I like the new trilogy. Well, okay. I like some of the new trilogy that they put out there, but it will never not make me laugh that the main planet that Rey comes from is just fucking Tatooine with a different name.
100%. It's just another desert planet.
Guys, it's Jakku. It's like, it's fucking Tatooine.
If they pointed it out on a map, it'll probably be like Tatooine's neighbor. Like, oh, don't tell anyone. So it's been
Tatooine's actually mad that there's another duplicate planet out there for them. Like, it's nonsense. It really is nonsense. Why can they not move? It feels like that is the aesthetic for Star Wars, and they're like, well, everyone grew up watching A New Hope, so this is what nostalgia is for them. And I guess they're just so scared of the whole, you know, when George Lucas was doing the prequels and all those new planets were showing up and they were all blue screen to hell and back and they just looked fake. They're like, no, we've got to go back to the sand. We've got to go back to the source.
Got to go back to our roots,
Yeah, the roots where nothing can grow in the sand.
Oh my God, 100%. Yeah, I don't get it. So you can explore Tatooine in Star Wars Outlaws. It's going to be really fun driving around a desert on my bike.
Yeah. At least they're different planets. There's that like snowy planet that I think was in the last Star Wars film. There's like a green planet that reminds me of the who would know, the open world planet in Jedi Survivor. It looks very similar to that one. So
look,
I don't know.
I want to play it purely because I do love anything Star Wars, just by default. But it's going to be one of those, like, I almost feel it's going to be like a hate play. Like, damn you, Ubisoft, for making me do all this open world nonsense, but I can't not do it.
God, if it's like that typical Ubisoft open world formula, it's going to drain me so quickly. I have watched some gameplay, and it's also taken some stuff from Splinter Cell. You know, the thing where you can like mark 3 enemies and then press a button and then you like shoot them all in the head very quickly. I'm into that. Yeah.
So more Splinter Cell.
That's cool. Yeah. I mean, it's less satisfying if the enemies are basically like blind, but but it's still fun nonetheless. I think it will be decent, and I think it's going to be a lot of good eye candy because it does look visually like really good, but I'm not expecting it to blow me away. And maybe that's the good place to be in, because then it has all the opportunity to blow you away. You know?
So we'll see.
Speaking of being blown away,
the fans
check my chat to talk about video games. PC fans are on there raring.
Nice.
But I would say you were blown away by Elden Ring again for the second time. How rare is it for a game to impress you twice like this?
I mean, so the last time we spoke, I lied. I'd put in like 8 hours, I think, into Elden Ring's expansion.
You kind of had just started scratching the surface by what I remember. Like, you're like, cool, I've explored these things. I've got a few skibbity pap seeds. I do love that everyone has their own name for those fucking things. It's great.
Scooby-Doo.
Scooby-Doo snacks.
Scooby-Doo snacks is what John Michael Marcona call them.
Aren't Scooby-Doo snacks like a drug? Like an actual drug?
Probably.
Yeah, probably. I mean,
so I'd played 8 hours when we last spoke about it, and I'd obviously, like you said, scratched the surface, got a good feel for the DLC, and I was really enjoying it. And let me tell you, after 45, 50 hours later, having finished the DLC, it is really, really good. So much so that I have been playing it again with my second character, who you're seeing on screen now. It's my good guy, shirtless Gandalf, just doing his thing.
Shirtless Gandalf.
It's just interesting because, I mean, I've touched on this, but Elden Ring itself was very big, obviously. I mean, if you want to see everything and do everything in Elden Ring, you're looking at no less than like 100 hours. Like 100, 150 hours, depending on how detailed you want to explore the lands between. But they've taken that whole feel of, entering new areas and having these aha moments and then condensed it into something a lot shorter. Look, I say that, I mean, 50 hours is not, like a short expansion.
50 hours is not nothing to sneeze at.
If you were to mainline it, you could probably finish it in like 20, 30 hours, which is still a very long game, don't get me wrong. But you're getting all the highs of Elden Ring in like a much shorter space of time. There's just such a wide diversity of biomes, of good bosses, of new enemies, and it just, like, I had such a blast exploring it. And I think one thing that's the DLC also continues to do, which surprised me, is that in the base game, we all know, if you've played it, there's that moment where you first go down into I think it's Fiora's Well. You go down one of those long lifts and you're like, oh my God, there's a whole other area underneath the main map. And it's just this mind-blowing moment. This DLC doesn't have that, like, oh my God, there's an underworld map. But there's a huge sense of verticality where everything on this map is so laid. I mean, they describe it, I think on the box, it's like, it's the size of Limgrave. And you think, Limgrave's pretty big, but it's not huge, okay? And it is, you look at the map like, okay, that's pretty big, whatever. But then what you don't expect is that there are things under the map. There are huge cliffs as well. It's just very multi-layered, and it's that classic thing of everything you see in Elden Ring, you can go there somehow. Like you'll stand on a cliff and look down and go, oh my God, there's this place miles down there. I'm pretty sure I'll get there. And you do. Like much later in the game, through some obscure method, there you are right on the bottom of the map, looking up at the cliff you looked down from earlier. And it's filled with
such a satisfying feeling when you can do that in a game, I think.
The way this map connects and just the way they've built it, it's, again, like, it's a masterclass of game design. Like, truly, From Software, I don't know, it's just unreal how they pull this off. And I mean, you could even go back to how when Elden Ring came out, people were like, oh, but it's going to lose that charm of interconnectedness, because it's open world. And it's like, no, they nail it. It's not quite the same as you open a door, like, oh, I'm back at this area. But it is a thing of I'm standing on a cliff looking back at something I saw hours ago, and you're like, holy shit. It's just really, really good.
I actually think I just had this thought, you speaking about that now, but they use the Erdtree itself as a very clever like grounding point, if that makes sense. Like when you appear in an area, just like you did now, if you're watching the footage, it's like the beginning of the DLC, I imagine, and you galloping through those fields that look pretty much identical to like the first key art we got for the game. You see the Erdtree, so you have a sense of place in this world that you've explored, but you're seeing it from a different angle, so you immediately know, okay, based on that, this area is there, this area is that, and it grounds you in that world like really, really well.
No, so the tree you're seeing, it's not the Erdtree, it's the...
What?
You're in a completely different realm. You're going to laugh.
Toss everything I just said out of the window.
How big a fan are you of Yu-Gi-Oh?
I love Yu-Gi-Oh.
Because you're in the shadow realm, let me tell you.
Oh my God.
Okay, not
Pegasus is
not in Yu-Gi-Oh
shadow
realm, but this place is called it's the land of shadow.
Okay.
And it's funny, I watched a Vati video yesterday, and you pointed out earlier where everyone's saying the Scooby-Doo or the Skadoo, or he's pronounced it the Shadu tree.
Okay.
And he has a whole explanation of like, it's this word which means shadow, da-da-da.
Wait, Shadu as in like saying shadow like an idiot?
Yeah, Shadu.
Okay,
not
cool.
Not Skadoo,
cool.
It's Shadu.
Okay, Shadu.
I was like, he's got a whole explanation for how that came about. It's like, okay, Vati is the law on this. I guess it's the Shadu tree from now on. So you're not in the lands between. You're in a completely different place, and that is a different tree.
Okay.
But to your point, though, that tree is such a good... I mean, just like the base game, that tree always being visible is almost like a North Star. It's a marker to let you know, how close are you to it, how far are you from it, what angle you're looking at it. It gives the game a sense of weight. I mean, so and I keep comparing to the base game because it's very similar, but you'll see that tree. It's like one of the first things you see in Elden Ring, and the same in the shadow of the Erdtree, and you slowly make your way towards it. It's like you get close and close until you're there, and it just it's everything. The journey there is just, it's so good. Like I was saying to Lenski yesterday, I was like, I need to stop playing this game. Like I've got other things I want to play, but Elden Ring is just so satisfying. You can play.
Like, yes, I'd like my husband back too.
No, but it's this thing of, it's just satisfying to do combat, to level up. There's so many different builds you can do. And yeah, I don't know how From will top this. I mean, Elden Ring, Game of the Year 2022. This DLC, fantastic. And now you wonder, what do they do next? I mean, we've spoken about it. We wish it's a Bloodborne 2, unlikely a Bloodborne 2 due to, PlayStation rights and a whole whatever. Do they go back to Dark Souls? Do they go back to Sekiro? Like I don't know. Do they do an Elden Ring 2? Like I don't know. But it's
kind of nuts that they did an Armored Core between this.
Which I still need to play that.
It's just crazy. Like
casual Armored Core.
I don't know. I feel like I know. I think the most obvious answer is like an Elden Ring 2.
Yeah.
Because like they've got this foundation here now. I think you were talking earlier this week in our Discord, like how many people have been converted to fans of From's games purely off the back of Elden Ring.
Yeah.
And a lot of that comes down to the sort of the things you've been saying now, the sort of freedom that it affords you. It's not just about a world to explore and the difficulty in it, but it's like this natural exploration of a massive world that you can take in at your own pace. And as much as I would like to go back to a more focus is the wrong word, because I don't think Elden Ring is unfocused, to a more like linear or smaller in scale game like a Bloodborne or a Dark Souls, like I would love that. I crave that, especially because like I think Elden Ring, for as good as it is, 100 hours is a lot of time invested nowadays. But I can see like the argument that like a lot of people got into Elden Ring because it wasn't that. Despite that, a lot of people we know have gone back now into the catalog of From games and are finding a lot of enjoyment in there because it's just like they understand that formula. But I don't know. I would love I don't think they're going to do another Dark Souls because that series seems like shut now for them. We've said numerous times I would love a new Bloodborne. That'd be great. But I definitely see them moving on to like a similar thing to Elden Ring, if not a just full-on sequel from now.
It would be interesting because Dark Souls and Elden Ring are very similar in terms of tone. But I think, in a lot of ways actually. But I wouldn't be surprised if they did an open world Dark Souls. I think people would eat that up. It's like, maybe not Dark Souls 4, or they call it Dark Souls 4, whatever, but it's set in that world. They've got loose connections in terms of lore to the previous games, and it's got, iconic Dark Souls things, but it's an open world. I don't know.
That could work.
It'll be so interesting to see what they do next. And we're not going to see it for a while. I think given how big this expansion was, I can't imagine them releasing a new game for like at least another 3 years, let's say.
Yeah, I agree. Especially if it's meant to be on the scale of, an Elden Ring, which took them a long time. If you think of the gap between, what was their game before it? Was it Sekiro or Dark Souls?
No, it was Sekiro. And then,
it was Sekiro. So that was like, 2018, 2019? And then Elden Ring was 2022. But they had already announced Elden Ring, way before then. So, I think it'll be a while. And, Miyazaki has expressed in a lot of interviews that he wants to, he still wants to lead these games and direct them, but he's also allowing new talent within the studio to kind of get to grips with that sort of thing, because he's not going to be around forever. And you've seen that in the past. Dark Souls 2 wasn't directed by Miyazaki. Armored Core wasn't directed by Miyazaki. So it would be cool to see that sort of thing start coming through in newer experiences and newer games, and that could lead to entirely new surprises in the way that Elden Ring was a surprise, and I'm kind of excited for that as well. So before Elden Ring, everyone was like, cool, a new Dark Souls, a new Bloodborne. And when it was a brand new IP, I don't think anyone was like, oh, lame. But it's like they have the ability to do something completely different and blow us away. So I'm curious to see if that's what they do as well again now.
Do you have plans to play this expansion at some point?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Like I'm looking for time to play it. I won't lie, it is a bit intimidating to try and dive back into that world after like 2 years of being away and kind of figure out what I was doing, what my build was, how to play the game fundamentally again. But I think that's just a 1 or 2 hour problem, and then you're kind of like in it again.
It'll come back to you. And what's nice is that unlike previous From games where you'll finish the game, it's like, cool, new game plus, that's it. You can just shred it. You can pick up your whatever character you last had, whether you finish the game or not, and just granted, as long as you beat in Radahn and Moog, then you can go straight to the DLC. Did you in your original Elden Ring playthrough, did you explore the Blood Palace?
I beat Moog,
then you can just dive straight in.
I did quite a bit in my... I beat all the
the main
named bosses, not the required ones only, but the big ones.
I read somewhere that this DLC has 80 bosses, and I was like...
80?
And I was like...
Holy shit.
I was like, really? But then it's like 80 bosses, and then there's like 10 to 12, proper main bosses.
So it's like some of those in the main game that you find in dungeons.
Yeah, it's like these side dungeons out in the open field, whatever. Sorry, in terms of 80, I was like, okay, I guess that makes sense. But I was just like, damn, I didn't fight 80 bosses.
That's a lot. I mean,
I thought like a fair few bosses, not 80 of them.
That's like all the Souls games combined, essentially, in terms of boss count, which is kind of nuts. Yeah.
What's wild about...
I'm excited to see like all the new bosses because like I've seen... It's impossible not to see some of them on social media, so I'm curious to like fight them. They look really interesting.
What's wild is that to finish the DLC, you only have to fight 3 bosses.
Of course, yeah, of course.
So I've ticked off. I explored the DLC thoroughly, and some really good boss fights. Would recommend.
I think I saw you put out a cool thread on like how many times you died to each boss. What was it? The last one that was 174 times.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that must be one of the most. Like, if I think about how you played the other games, I can't recall you ever having that much trouble with a.
No, Millennia, I died more too. I think Millennia was 200 and something, if I recall. I don't know the exact number, but it's interesting because there have been discussions like, is the final boss harder than Millennia? And looking at it now, I'm like, in terms of raw numbers, like, no, because I died less to this final boss, but definitely up there is a very, very, very challenging boss. Very good boss. Had a lot of fun.
But I think it's important to preface that number is high for you, but you also choose not to play with some of the it's the aids like a mimic or something like that, which is totally fine, but like it shouldn't skew the sort of number that you posted there.
Oh no, I mean you've got people who'll probably beat that boss like first time because of how they've built and whatever, and by all means, like, everyone plays these games differently, and I choose. I mean, it's funny because I'll die again and again. I'm like, damn this, but I won't back down. Like, I want to do it the way I've set out to do it.
And that's cool. It's cool that the game gives you the ability to do that or not if you choose not to. I distinctly remember when I fought Millennia, I was at a point where there was so much discourse around her as being like this really grueling boss that a few like failures in, I was like, I really don't feel like banging my head against this for 200 attempts. I'm already at a point where I've played 80, 90 hours of Elden Ring, and I don't want this to like sour it. So, it was one of the few bosses I used the Mimic on, and that made it significantly easier, and that I'm like totally comfortable with that. So.
But it's fun. I mean, even my second playthrough, the footage you're seeing now, this character, I do it. It's completely different. I'm a spellcaster. I use mimics everywhere just because it's a different experience, and I still have just as much fun. It's a good time.
Just explain this build quickly, because you've got like a magic staff and you've got a sword, and that sounds like an interesting build I want to explore.
So no, it's just it's really just an intelligence build because it's a spellcaster. The sword I've got is from the base game. I can't remember what the hell it's called, but it's a katana that scales with intelligence and dexterity. And I think if you're a spellcaster who wants to use, I like using katanas in close range weapons, so it's a cool balance of the two. He has a great death if you watch it. I climbed on my horse and Tara just launched for it. I was like, whoa, what are you doing? It's just that weapon. It's a great katana you found in old in a cave in old DJ Khalid back in the base game.
Oh, love DJ Khalid.
DJ Khalid. And it's got a cool move where you sheath it and you pull it out and you do like a range attack. So
I've been seeing that. It's almost like the Rivers of Blood, Ash of War, where you did that. Yeah.
So it's a fun build. I mean, you just have to. It's really just an intelligence build with a bit of dex. And
so are you like melting bosses with that, or do you still have to very carefully?
Oh no,
move around them
with my mimic, and that like I'll eat through bosses. I mean, this character I'm doing the typical thing where I've got that mixed physique that ignores mana costs for like 5-10 seconds, whatever, and then I've got the the one comet spell which is just that huge laser beam. So
the Kamehameha.
Yeah, so if you line it up, you'll melt a boss so quickly. But if you miss it, it's which happens.
Might as well die.
No, it happens because you lock on and it takes a few seconds to charge up, and then the boss sidesteps. Like, come on, man, just stand still.
I remember seeing a lot of videos from when the original game came out of people just like that exact spell, just melting bosses.
Yeah,
like walk
100%.
in on Moog, immediately kill him, sort of thing. So
I'm interested to fight other. There are some bosses though where I'm like that. In terms, like generally, a spellcaster makes bosses a lot simpler with the mimic, because the mimic can tank and you can just happily, tap away from the side. There's some bosses here though which I think directly counter this kind of build. There's a boss, for example, that is on horseback, and it's interesting because I think you can summon Torrent in this fight. So I presume the idea is that you fight this boss on Torrent. But this boss will like hit you off Torrent in one hit, and you're kind of forced to fight him close, and it's like, okay, you kind of can't get away. You can't get distance in this guy. So I don't know. I'm interested to see how this build fares, against certain bosses like that.
I think that's always the thing. It's balance. Like there is no one boss that requires a specific build to beat. There has to be a certain level of like depth to your own build where you can change it situationally for a certain boss, but that's the beauty of these sorts of games, and what a good role-playing game is to give you the freedom to build like that and to have a fun experience either way with that. It is a fantastic time. Like, I think was your main build a Blood Dex build? Again?
Blood Dex. Okay. So for the DLC I played.
Oh, you whiffed that command.
I mean, this is what I'm talking about. This dragon keeps moving, man. For the main game, my main playthrough, it's the typical max, like a very high dexterity, and then a lot of points into arcane, because that's what scales the blood. Yeah. So,
and still rivers of blood, or did you find a different
I
weapon?
use rivers of blood a lot, but then there was another weapon from the base game which I had and I didn't really use. It's like Eleanor's pole arm or something. It's like
I know that one. Yeah.
So I never used that in the base game. I used it a lot here, and I did use one or two new weapons in the DLC.
Okay.
The last thing I'll say about the DLC, it's funny. I didn't really find new weapons that made me go like, wow, this weapon was made for me. Because it feels that a lot of the stuff I found was more for faith builds, which is just like something I didn't have.
Okay.
So if you're playing a faith character, you're going to find a lot of stuff. I don't know how useful it is, but at least you can use it. I picked up so many things. I was like, what a cool weapon. Oh, it scales with faith. I can't use it. So, yeah.
Okay. No, it sounds, it's, again, I'm going to get to it eventually, hopefully before the end of the year.
Yeah.
But I am excited, and, hearing you talk about it so positively, just, it has me even more excited, because I think we are very aligned when it comes to these sorts of games and these sorts of experiences. So I'm almost certain I'm going to have a good time with it.
Nice. Cool. That's Shadow of the Erdtree.
You know where we aren't aligned, though?
Don't even say it. This is where we end the podcast.
Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Now, you finished this a while ago. I think we actually did a podcast. Yeah. I've been playing it in the same way that I played Elden Ring when it came out, and that's to say I'm chipping away at it throughout the year.
Yeah.
And unlike Elden Ring, which I think started very slow for me, I was like, at first wasn't sure if the pivot to like an open world was really working for me. Like, as I played more, I was like, oh, this actually is kind of phenomenal. And by the end of the 100 hours, which was a lot, I was very satisfied and very happy with the game, and very few regrets with the time I had spent, because I felt like it absolutely rewarded the time I had spent with it. Yeah. I could not be more opposite on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I think it has been a long time since I've played a game that has absolutely zero respect for my time than Rebirth does. So for context, I'm on chapter 9 out of what I recall is 14 chapters, I think in
14,
total.
yeah.
I've played, I think my game counters at like 40 hours. So I've played around the same amount of time that it took me to like 100% Rebirth. Remake, sorry.
Yeah.
Listen, this game, I know you love it, and I don't think that anyone cannot love this game. I think there is a big sense of nostalgia that is tied to the enjoyment of this game, and that counts for something. That is not nothing. I do think this is an obscenely weirdly paced game in terms of how it doles out the story in very small chunks and then throws you into different like open world hubs. And even ignoring a lot of those open world hubs, which I've started doing because I just think they're a colossal waste of time. The story is still like very glacially paced. I feel like I'm 40 hours in and nothing has really happened.
Yeah.
You've kind of left the main city from the first game, and you've gone out and experienced these new little villages as you walk towards somewhere, because it's not entirely clear. Like if you were playing this game for the first time, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, like you've never played the original, it would be very confusing as to what is actually, where are they actually going? What is their actual goal?
Yeah.
Because like compared to the focused, we are blowing up reactors of Remake, this is very like, we are just walking and things are happening and kind of making it up as we go along. And then every now and then you get a cutscene showing like Shinra and their people arguing about something. And even that's very unclear as to what their end goal is. And all I can say for now is that everyone wants the big materia whales. And that's like all I got for you. They want the big materia,
Nice.
and Yuffie is very obsessed with the materia whale. It looks like a whale.
No,
like,
you're right.
It looks like the big materia whale. They've got the big orb in their belly. It's very cute. Like they look kind of endearing.
Yeah. No, look, it's interesting because I think I've obviously got the context of the original game. I've played the original games. I know exactly where they're going, what beats they're trying to do, whatever. So I think our experience is obviously very different. I can't imagine not knowing. It's one of those things where I would never tell you to do this. It's like one of those things where you'd have to play this game multiple times, because then you'll play to go like, oh, when so and so said this in chapter 3, they're obviously prefacing.
They reference this thing,
which is like an insane thing to tell someone like you to play it again. But I've done that, right? Like I've played the original game to death so many times. I know exactly where they're going, what's coming, and I think that's skewed. Like, don't get me wrong, open world, I can acknowledge, it's filled of like a lot of guff. Okay,
it's bad.
I ended up doing 100%ed the main game purely because like I love Final Fantasy. It's like one of my favorite games of all time, but I'll still acknowledge that the open world was filled with so much like checklist stuff. And it's like, did they have to do that? No. Like the open world parts, if they just had the hubs, I think that would be perfect. Like it's just, you can run through it, there's maybe 1 or 2 side quests to do. But the fact that they filled it with like Ubisoft towers, like you got to go climb this tower to unlock this, and there's every hub has like 9 specific creature encounters, and it's very like they had a checklist of like, cool, make sure every open area has all these things.
I mean, there's literally a checklist 100%. As you finish those things.
It's like, I'm not a fan of that. I think they missed the mark on that, and I hope for the third game that they take notes and don't do that. But all the in between stuff, it's funny because I thought telling you to mainline the game would almost like fix the problem. Like I know we experienced the game differently because for every main chapter I spent a lot of time ticking off everything. So I thought, well, if you cut out all the fluff and you just mainline through cinematics and cutscenes and main beats, like maybe that fixes the problem, but it doesn't seem like it is fixing the problem for you.
Yeah, I think it's definitely helping. Like I think if I was still, because I did like all this stuff in, what's the first open world area called? It starts with a C.
Calm.
Calm.
With a K.
Oh, it's a K. Sorry. Oh, Calm.
I'll let that one slide.
And then I did Junon, like like everything in Junon. And after that, I was like, I'm done doing this. Like, I thought, okay, from now on, I'm just going to get the summoning materia in each open world, because that seems like something that's actually quite valuable, and do the side quests, because those are most of the times tied to a party member, and that's how you kind of increase the relationship with them.
Yeah.
But it was immediately after Junon where you do the arguably very, very cool military minigame thing. Really enjoyed that. That was pretty nice. Very fun.
Yeah.
But it's immediately after that where I've set my mind on, okay, no more side bullshit minigames. I'm just going to experience the story. You get to 2 parts in the game where you absolutely can't get away from that stuff. In Costa del Sol and the Golden Saucer. Like, Costa del Sol is nonsense. It is... It is so cool that there's this beach vibe, and there's this whole like whimsical idea of, okay, cool, we're going to play these mini games so you can get a bathing suit so you can go to the beach, and then we're going to do that exact thing again. And I was just like, okay, like, I like this area, but this is going on for way too long. And then you get to the Golden Saucer, and I much preferred that.
Yeah.
Because I just think the area is kind of cool to explore. It's just those little escalators where you just walk and you hover to your next destination. Pretty cool.
That's, yeah.
Quite like that. Cait Sith, cool character. Like his little teleprompter that spits out paper and tells the future. Pretty fun. Mini games there, also not too bad. I got really into that 3D boxing game, which was quite fun.
Let me tell you that
very, very
that
cool.
game gets so difficult. Holy shit!
Oh no, I can imagine. Even by the end of the Golden Saucer run, I was like, wow, there's a lot of like depth here. And I love Queen's Blood. I think Queen's Blood is like the one mini game that
you have
like
to
actively seek out. It's so good. It's so good. But again, it's just like, cool, I'm focusing on the main story. You're forced to do this stuff that is still part of the main story, but it's padded out with these mini games and not necessarily the sort of meat of the combat that is the most interesting part of the game, I think.
Yeah.
And it just means the story goes very slowly. So when I'm playing it at this pace where it's like little bits at a time, it just makes the whole thing seem very drawn out. And it's very difficult to piece together a story, like you were saying, where, oh, there's this thing mentioned in chapter 3 that is now relevant in chapter 9. But I played chapter 3 like
4 years
2
ago.
or 3 weeks ago. And because it was such a slowly paced thing, I wasn't even like really paying attention to what was going on. And, you know, a lot of that is on the person playing. But I think when I come back to it from a context of having really, really loved Remake, and I think Remake is a very well-paced game, even though it's got all of this sort of like fluff in between as well. I think they just went way too far on the other end of the scale in terms of let's take this small experience and make it an 100-hour game. And I don't think it works. I really don't. I think it's still a good game, and I think I'm not like angry that I'm playing it, but I'm at the point now where I'm ready for it to be done. I just want to see the story and be done with it, and that's a bad place to be with the game, I think. Yeah.
But I mean, I remember so I'm on the opposite end where I love this game, and again, I acknowledge it's got problems. It's got a mini game problem. There are way too many mini games. Like it was like make as many games as you can, challenge accepted. Square like, oh, okay,
literally
we're gonna put in like 100, however many games there are. But I still remember, I think if you listen to the review episode we did where I'd finished the game, I still think I said I love the game, but I do feel that I miss the focus of Remake, where it's funny because I wanted an open world because it's Final Fantasy, and I think that they had to do it. Like, it kind of just had to be done. But there was something nice about Remake where you are just being steered toward a destination, you know, with like a lot less fluff. It's more focused. I mean, I'll say the same for Elden Ring, where I love Elden Ring. I love the open world of Elden Ring, but a part of me does still yearn for the Bloodborne, where it's just this closed hub. It's just me mainlining down, mainlining down a corridor without having to like, you know, figure out an open world. I think it's difficult to, you know, I don't know how they would make Rebirth not be that, because the original Final Fantasy, which you're following, is open world. Like, I think people would have lost their minds if they were being handheld, you know, from chapter to chapter with no in-between exploration. But I do agree that, I mean, again, the fluff, the mini games, just even like you said, Costa del Sol, I forgot about that. It's a main story beat where it's like, you got to get to the beach, but you need a costume. You're going to have to, and it's like, that is just silly. Like, why did they do that?
Silly.
It's I guess it's it forces you to engage with the area, but it's like, why not make that optional? Honestly, like, if I would have engaged with the area because I wanted to, you know, but for someone like you, it's like, I actually just want the story beats out of this game now. Like, no, you're gonna go do these 3 mini games and you're gonna get this costume and do this drawn out story bit. It's like, I agree with you. Like, I get where you're coming from, and it must be frustrating. Whereas, again, I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I'm like, yes, give me all of the fan service, I'll take it. But I still acknowledge that some of it was not handled properly.
And I think that's where it's, I guess, you know, like, who are they making the game for? And, you know, if it's someone who has these memories of Final Fantasy VII, it's really hitting a lot of those high notes. And, I don't think that's a prerequisite to enjoy the game, because I've definitely heard from people who enjoyed the original that have very similar problems with the way this open world is structured, and the story itself, and people who have no context of the original thoroughly enjoying it. So I just like Costa del Sol, such an interesting thing, because it comes off the back of such a big turning point in the story, in that you start seeing the sorts of machinations that Shinra is up to, like what they're trying to do, what Hojo is trying to do. And there's like this big, like quite dire moment on that ship on the way to Costa del Sol where a lot of people are dying, and you start seeing what's happening to the dudes in the hooded cloaks, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. This is gearing up to actually, you know, get going. This seems like the mission now that your party is going to be tackling. And the very next like 4 or 5 hours are you just playing mini games on the beach, and it's like,
it is, in terms of pacing,
what is happening here?
I mean, it is strange, because a lot of the story beats do feel like, okay, we need to follow the men in the black robes, but then it's like they get to a destination and it's, let's just take a break. We're at a beach destination.
Quite literally, yeah. Like, it's like, oh, these dudes in the black robes are just chilling on the beach. I guess we can too.
And the same happens at the Golden Saucer. It's like, oh, the dudes with the black robes, but it's the Golden Saucer. Let's just take a load off. I'm like, you guys just did that at Costa del Sol. Like, get back on the mission.
I think that's the thing. They're so closely put together that it just feels like this middle of the game is like Costa del Sol, Golden Saucer for like 3 chapters, and it's just like lost the entire focus of the game, which was already like very unfocused at that point to me. So maybe I've just hit like for me, the worst part, and now it's going to like pick up again now that I'm in, is it Gongaga? Gongaga. I always make that mistake. Gongaga. And
have you gone into the village of Gongaga, or are you just in the general area?
No. I went, like, I got to that open world, the Gongaga, and I just went straight to the fucking village. I was like, fuck this. I'm not looking at anything else. I'm going to the village. Got to the village. They're like, talk to your party members and go to bed. I'm like, sick. Let's do this. Now I'm at the reactor. I'm like, I'm ready to go. Like, I have not explored any part of that jungle.
Do you remember, now we're just having a little side tour here. Do you remember what Gongaga is? Whose hometown it is?
Yes. Okay. There was a moment actually when you speak to Aerith about
I couldn't remember that was forced in the game or not. Yeah.
I think it is, because you have to talk to all the party members. Yeah. And then I didn't remember previously, but as soon as that happened, I was like, oh, right. Yeah. I also can't pinpoint what's happening with that story, that side story, because after remake, I was like, oh, okay. Going to be a really integral part of it. But from what I've played, it seems more like a flashback than anything else. It doesn't seem to be playing out in parallel, or definitely isn't. It's quite confusing, I won't lie.
Yeah,
that's not a bad thing. I'm just like, it also is annoying because it throws you to that character for 30 seconds and then comes back.
I think
You're
after
like,
each chapter, it's like, here's a little baby segment, and now back to the
Yeah.
main story, and you like 5 hours later, like, okay, what's happening over here?
Yeah. I did have if Mick is listening to this, you need to just turn off for another like 30 seconds or a minute. But in Discord, Mick was like, I'm speaking to Tifa and she's talking about Cloud in such a nice way. I mean, I wonder what happens to him for him to become such an insufferable asshole. And I was like, my man.
You are not prepared.
There's so much coming. You have no idea.
That's great. Yeah, but I don't know. It's an interesting game, and I think to go back to like why we're having such different experiences, it's also this thing of, I remember going to Costa del Sol and Golden Saucer and Gongaga, and like Gongaga in the base game is literally, it's like this village with like 3 huts and there's a few people to talk to and you move on. Like that's it. It doesn't, from my memory, it's not like an integral part of the story. But I think what blew me away is that every time you went to a place, just how big and real they made it. It's like Costa del Sol again, like it's this cool beach resort in the original, a few buildings and a beach to walk around, and you move on. Here it's like, no, it's a full-on resort. You can see hundreds of people doing the thing. Golden Saucer as well, like base game was, it gave you the illusion of it's huge or whatever, but here it's like, oh my god, this is the Golden Saucer I imagined as a kid. You know, it's like this huge amusement park, whatever. I think, sorry, to go back to Gongaga, it's the same thing. It's like, it was this little village in the original. Here it's like this massive area that you can run around. I think that's where the game really sings for me, where they put a lot of love into making it feel real. It's like, this is what you kind of imagined as a kid playing this game. Like, oh wow, it's this big jungle area or whatever. It's just a pity that they bogged it down with the open world nonsense and too many games.
I think that's part of the problem with them, is like they've taken the time to realize these places, and I think that's why this remake exists, why it has to exist for them, is like, we had these areas in the original and we want to expand on them and show them in a manner which is like, this is how you, like exactly how you said, how you imagine them as a kid. And there's a lot of work that goes into that. So I think there's this desire to keep the players in those areas because you want them to experience all the work that's gone into expanding them. But I think that comes at the detriment of definitely the pacing of the game.
For sure.
And then also just to the areas themselves, because it just sours what they could have been. You know, it's hard for me to say like, oh, Costa del Sol should have been a place you just visit and you can leave almost immediately. Like, why would they spend the time fleshing it out in the way they did if you could do that?
Yeah,
so
just straight,
yeah, I just think it's like there's a lot of forced stuff here that doesn't need to be forced, or is, you know, it's just the wrong way to go about it. I think as a game designer, you need to be confident in that players who want to seek out the stuff that you've put there will, and the ones who don't shouldn't. It shouldn't sour the experience, in my view.
No, for sure.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff in some of the best open world games ever made. You know, an Elden Ring, a Witcher 3. That, how many times have you seen a video about Elden Ring? You're like, I had no fucking clue that was there. Like,
I'm watching videos.
What if Elden Ring was about forcing you to go and see those things? You know, it's a very different sort of dynamic.
Yeah, I'm watching, like, I was scrolling Reddit the other day and somebody is like, oh, this weapon got buffed in the last patch. I was like, what weapon is that? And I looked at it, was like, oh, it's some legendary weapon in the DLC. I'm like, well, where'd you get it? And the way to get it, I was like, who figured this out? It's like one of those, you jump like off a ledge onto a path and you run through it. And I was like, I missed all of that. Oh, come on, man.
Yeah. It's two fundamentally different ways to approach how an open world works, and I think Rebirth just feels like how open worlds did work prior to, you know, people say Breath of the Wild, but I think even before then, like The Witcher does a better open world than what Rebirth does. It is very checklisty, it is very Ubisoft like, and I know the argument against it is like, ignore it. Like, I am ignoring it, but because the story itself is so set in making use of all these areas, it's not enough.
No.
So yeah, it's a bit of a pity, and I'm hoping the game ends off, you know, stronger, because I think now it has to start building towards a sort of finale. So I think it will suddenly like refocus itself and like bring into view the big antagonists of the game, because again, if you've never played the original, Sephiroth must be this most confusing fucking element of this game. He just pops up. You have no idea why he's a bad guy. He's barely a bad guy because he's barely there. And it's just like super confusing as to why he's such an important character. So yeah, I think again, off the back of Remake, this has been a disappointing, not a completely bad, but a disappointing follow-up to that game.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping they learn from this for the third one.
I think,
and don't just expand more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because for the third one, it's going to be very interesting to see, because the idea is that, you know, in the original game, eventually you get to a point where you can travel the whole world. Okay. I'm like, how do they do that in the third game? Do all these open hubs come back and they're just there to explore? Do they also like is my favorite homie Chadley going to be like, Cloud, I lost all the research data you found.
Good God.
You got to do it again. Like, I don't know how they do it, but I sincerely hope that they take feedback from this game and they go, okay, cool, like keep the open world stuff, but maybe let's not like rub our players' faces and everything. Like, let them explore at their own leisure. It's there if they want to. They don't have to. Yeah, I don't know. Like, just maybe just rein it in a bit. Less fluff.
The thing that gives me a bit of hope is that they've left a lot of core story stuff for the third one, by my understanding. So I don't think they can get as distracted here. Whereas Rebirth adapts a very small portion of 7 in its entirety, yet they stretched it out over like double the runtime of Remake, which seems crazy to me. So yeah, maybe the third game will be a lot more focused because they kind of have to get to that conclusion.
There's still a lot.
But like you said, if they're going to recycle a lot of this open world stuff, I'm just going to be like, if in the first hour of whatever it's called, Reunion, you know, if Chadley just pipes up in the first hour, I'm just going to be like, I'm done. Fuck this game. If Cloud pulls out that little stupid iPad gun thing, I'll be done. Man, I just hate hearing that bloody chime over and over again.
It is like, is it a gun? Is it an iPad? No, it's both.
It's both. And also, like, you can immediately tell when he's going to pull it out because, like, you'll do a summoned sync whatever challenge, and you'll press back to make Cloud turn, and he just doesn't move. And you're like, okay, I need to wait like 2 seconds for the animation to kick in, and then he's going to pull out his stupid telephone, and Chadley's going to be there being like, well done, Cloud. And you can see I've done too much of this, way too much of this stuff. I don't know how you managed to do all of it. I genuinely don't know.
I'm there for the fan service, man. I loved it. I was there. I was just ticking everything.
I'm very glad you had a good time, because I think if it really soured the experience for big Final Fantasy VII fans, that would be even worse.
I'm sure it pissed off a lot of OG fans as well. Don't get me wrong, but I'm of the camp of, again, acknowledge that it's got problems, but I still love the game overall, for the like aforementioned reasons of like bringing places to life, etc., etc. I know where you are now, and you still coming on one of my favorite moments from the original game, and I think they did it some fair justice in the remake. So we'll talk when you get there. I'll tell you when you're there.
I'm happy to finish this game off on a much stronger note than what it's been for this middle section. Also very interesting learning why Cait Sith has the accent that she does. Wow. Didn't realize it was rooted in Irish folklore. Oh, it's an actual thing.
Did you look it up after, or because I
actually ended up spoiling something by doing that by accident.
I know. What did you spoil?
I spoiled, let's say, Cait Sith's arc in the game.
Okay, you need to tell me. Make close your ears.
I read something that he betrays you at some point, so I was like, well, that's good to know.
Okay.
I don't know how he does it. I don't know why he does it, but I just read that and I was like, cool.
I have questions about that I'll ask you after.
He's chaotic in your party, hey? I won't lie. He's kind of fun. The fact that one of his core abilities is to roll a dice and whatever it lands on doesn't attack, I'm a big fan of that. I think that's cool.
I will say the way they've interpreted these characters, I mean, in the original, his like in the original, it's turn-based. You just got your normal attacks, but one of his ultimate abilities was like rolling the dice, and it did damage based on what it landed on. So just cool that they brought that element of luck back and just made it one of the core.
His main abilities are like that and summoning his little robot pal, which is pretty cool.
Really cool.
Who was your main like party that you stuck with? Because I feel like I've settled into a party and I'm very rarely moving away from that until the story is like party selection locked, and I'm like, fuck.
I found that happen a lot less than I thought it would, to be honest. Like
same, yeah.
In the base game,
it happens a bit at the beginning
you
and not that much now.
You're forced to play with certain characters, whatever. I used obviously Cloud, Red, because I just love Red's combats, and I used Aerith for reasons.
I've kind of hopped between Cloud. I mean, you can't not choose him because he's there. Aerith. Aerith I dropped for a very long time because I couldn't figure out why she was useful outside of healing. But now there's that one weapon which gave her a ward which you put down and it doubles all of her magic attacks.
It's invaluable.
That thing is so good. So yeah, I've got her in there, and then I've bounced between like Barrett as a third or Tifa as a third, depending on whether I need more range or more physical attack. I use Yuffie every now and then because I think she's quite interesting with the elemental stuff that she can do. Red, I don't mind. I just really don't understand his vengeance mechanic super well.
It's just
so I feel like I'm underutilizing him. Put it that way.
Yeah, no, it's all about like blocking and counter attacking. In the moment it falls, you activate it, and he just does more damage, and he gets lifesteal.
And I think that's the area where I don't fully like block or counter because I'm just like melting enemies. So it just feels like I'm not really using him.
Use him
properly.
For his. I think he's right out the gate. He's got it's called Stardust or Star Ray. It's like one of his core abilities.
The one that takes 2 ATB charges.
That's so good for clearing enemies. And that's funny because I think that was one of his ultimate abilities in the base game. So I was like, oh,
not even his limit, just an ability there.
Straight up ability, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that ability is very strong. And when I did have him in my party with Barrett, that's like when I wasn't using Aerith, I was using Red, and very useful. But yeah, I think characters like Yuffie and Cait Sith come so late in the game that I've kind of settled on my party now, and I experiment with them. I'm like, that's cool, and then I just move back to the main party. But now I'm in like an area now in Gongaga with like Tifa and Aerith aren't with me, so I'm using Barrett and Sith, which is quite fun.
Nice. Cool. Well,
there's good things in this game. There's frustrating things. I feel like a good prof Frank is going to listen to this, and I'm going to get a very angry WhatsApp
email.
message. But yeah, it's fun. Like, I'm glad people are enjoying it. I'm disappointed that I can't match that sort of enthusiasm, but I'm hopeful that the third one kind of like hones in on the good things from 1 and 2, and it ends off the trilogy on a high note.
Yeah, agreed. You and me both.
Cool. Those are 2 very extended talks on 2 very big games. Lots of stuff coming out in the near future. I mean, we spoke at the top of the show about Star Wars Outlaws, which is out end of August. Hopefully we'll get some time with that relatively soon, up until the launch. I really want to play some like smaller games like World of Goo, and Thank Goodness You're Here. That looks like a delight.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a bunch of other small games. I don't know if you've heard of this one. Jeff has actually been waxing lyrical to me about it, called Nine Souls.
I've heard of it.
It's what if Hollow Knight and Sekiro had a baby.
Say no more.
He's thoroughly enjoying it. It's a Metroidvania, obviously, and he says it's extremely good. And Jeff has a good knack for identifying good Metroidvanias, so I want to give that a go. It's only on PC currently.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a lot of stuff to catch up on throughout the year as well. That I want to jump in on No Man's Sky again, because apparently that new update is like phenomenal. Yeah. So that's on Game Pass as well, so that's pretty cool. yeah, anything you looking at now that Elden Ring is behind you? What's on the agenda?
Funny enough, I've been looking at playing Diablo 4, which I just never played last year. Because, I mean, remember it launched like 3 weeks before I moved. And then
right.
by the time I was set
yeah.
up and everything, like I was playing Final Fantasy 16, and it slipped under the radar. So,
I mean, you're choosing a good time because the expansion's out in October, I think. So it's not that far away. I mean, if you ever want to play co-op, let me know, because I'm on track to be reviewing that expansion, and I haven't really played the game since launch after finishing it there and doing some post. So the game has changed drastically since then, being a live service game and all. So I'd be keen to hop back in and give it a go as well.
Nice.
I thoroughly enjoyed Diablo 4. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, it's one. I'm pretty sure I enjoyed it. Just I have just not gotten around to it.
Good story.
Yeah.
I quite enjoyed the story, and it's it's a good game. I think you've enjoyed previous Diablos. So I don't see any reason why you wouldn't enjoy this
Diablo
one.
3.
Diablo 3 was good.
Yeah.
Diablo 3 was good. And I'm hoping like Diablo 3 was good when I thought it was good when it came out, but I know a lot of people had an issue. But it was when Reaper of Souls came that game hit a new stride.
It's so good, yeah.
And I'm kind of hoping for the same sort of effect from what's it called? Something of Hatred, the expansion for Diablo 4. Vessel of Hatred, that's it. And if it manages to do that with Diablo 4, which I think is a much stronger base game than 3 was, it could be big, could be really, really good. So yeah, that's out soonish as well. Yeah, from September to the end of the year, there's a lot happening.
That's
so
cool.
yeah, Dragon Age Veilguard looks quite more interesting than I thought I'd be interested in it. So, and that's apparently coming end of October, so that's not that far away either.
Yeah, the year's not done.
The year is definitely not done, which means we might accelerate more of these episodes more frequently, because there'll be a lot more to
talk about.
To actually go. There's actually a new Zelda next month.
Is that next month?
Yeah, it's in September.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah, stuff is coming. That's been episode 254, I guess. Thanks so much for listening. We will definitely be back relatively soon, hopefully with some impressions on even newer games. And as always, we appreciate your support, and we hope you have a delightful week or two ahead of you.
Yes. No, you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.